Hello, it's Vanessa McLennan here, and this is the place to be to help you with your emotional eating and poor eating habits. I'm a therapist and I specialise in weight loss, and what I really help you with is tackling the reasons that cause you to eat the way that you do. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about why we eat emotionally, so that you may resonate with some of the points that I'm talking about. So if you think that this resonates with you, keep watching because I have some tips at the end to help you manage it. I bring out a new video every single Thursday, so if you'd like to know more about emotional eating, weight loss and mindset and healthy eating habits, click the subscribe button and also click the bell so that you can be notified of my next video. So what drives us to eat emotionally? Well, first of all, let's just tackle what is emotional eating. So emotional eating is where you have an emotion, maybe it might be unwanted or even wanted, it's just an emotion, and you just turn to food in that moment to either help you manage the emotion, cope with the emotion, or even to suppress the emotion if it's an unwanted emotion. So it can also be called comfort eating. In my last video that I took, I spoke lots about what exactly is emotional eating. So if you'd like to know more about that, I'll put it in the comments below so that you can look at it. So what causes us to eat emotionally? Well, in my practice, I have seen perhaps lots and lots of different reasons, but I'm going to put them perhaps into four main categories, and then maybe you might fall into one of them. So the first category is what I'm going to call poor parenting. So this is, on some level, the child's physical and emotional needs have not been met. So you could perhaps have a parent or parents who are like too critical, authoritarian, very, very controlling, very damning, not supportive of that child. So in other words, they don't actually let the child perhaps just be. They don't let the child express themselves, and so the child then never learns to express themselves. A few times the clients have told me that they've come from very strict religious backgrounds. So in other words, what the parents are doing, and not necessarily the parents but carers are doing, it's really important to them to conform, to make sure that they're being seen to be doing the right thing, and they're really sort of making sure that their child conforms. The child must behave, the child must do something in a certain time, in a certain way, and this can be again very restrictive for that child if that doesn't meet the child's needs. Now sometimes it can be related to food. In other words, food could be withheld. The child might not even have been fed. The child might have to learn to fend for themselves. But overall it might be sort of that with love is being withheld, or just they're not in a supportive environment. And in which case what happens is here, the child makes a decision to, learn to turn to food to have their needs met. So we all have these basic needs. We all need to have a level of comfort. We all need to have a level of security. We all need to have a level of love. We all need to want to be emotionally heard as well, just emotionally looked after. So in a child, if those needs aren't being met, and even as an adult, we will find another way to ensure that those needs are met. So often sometimes then to meet those needs, what we do is we turn to food, because food, can be a great source of comfort. And so hence then if we turn to food, we turn to it again and again and again, and then that pattern just continues on then throughout childhood. My second category is a childhood trauma. So this could be, a child has brilliant parents, they are really looked after and really well cared for, but however a trauma happens. Now this is a perceived trauma by the child. So it could be anything from bullying, from school problems, even like a death, parents separate, even like a death of a pet, something that's just causing that child a trauma. Unfortunately, what I've seen a lot of is abuse in children and sexual abuse, and that causes a lot of trauma, obviously. All this is really hard for the child to process. They don't understand what's going on, and children don't have the same, logical reasoning abilities or analytical abilities that we have as adults. So they can't work out what's happening, and these emotions are still coming up for them. They've never been trained to work on these emotions, and really it's just so overwhelming and confusing for that child. Also, maybe it's very difficult for that child to talk to anyone, especially in the cases of abuse and sexual abuse, where their abuser, might be actually threatening the child, that child is really not going to feel that they can go and talk to anyone because of those threats. So because of what's going on, what might be happening is the child is, withdrawing into themselves a lot. They were continually to withdraw in themselves because they don't know how to, talk about it. They don't know who they can talk to about it, or maybe they can, but because they can't make sense of their emotions, they don't know how to articulate themselves. So it could be at this point a child learns, now this is an unconscious learning, will at some point turn to food, and maybe the parents have gone, oh look here, have something to, it's meant out of love, to make the child feel better, and so that child then makes that association, if I eat a comfort food at this moment in time, I feel better. So that's done unconsciously. This cycle then gets repeated and repeated. Now the parents might not know what is going on. The parents might think their child is fine, and then after a period of time they notice their child perhaps putting on weight, or just maybe secretly eating food, or just eating a lot of snack foods. And then what happens is the parents obviously see that behaviour and then comment on that behaviour, stop eating that food. They might tell the child off with the good intentions, but then of course what that does is that causes the child again to feel perhaps shame or embarrassment about what they're doing, and they withdraw even more within themselves, and hence then the cycle just continues on and on and on. The child at this point, doesn't understand or doesn't know that what they're doing is causing them harm. It's just the unconscious is finding such a source of comfort, and that's what we want. We just want a source of comfort, so of course we keep on eating and eating and eating. My third category is learnt behaviour. So this is where a child learns from a really young age to copy their parents. So a child doesn't know, what is a good habit. A child doesn't know what's a bad habit. A child even doesn't know, what's a good food or what isn't a bad food. In other words, what's healthy or what's not healthy for us. All they are simply doing is just copying. And then maybe, that you've then grown up with learning these habits, and now that you can see you passing them on to your own children, so you can see your children eating the wrong foods, or just eating the wrong, wrong times, as in overeating, and you're like, they are copying me. Now those habits could be something as simple as, just learning to eat desserts after every single meal, learning to put sugar in your teas and in your drinks, learning that drinking soda is a normal healthy drink to eat. A popular one is when you then give your child a treat. Now that treat, as you can know, I'm not a fan. That treat is either, a sugary food, a biscuit. It's like, why are we then setting up the associations that a sugary food is a treat? It is not a treat, but that's what the child learns, to treat themselves. And so of course then that continues throughout childhood. Maybe that when you went out to friends' houses, or you went to relatives' houses, that you were told you have to eat the food because it's rude to turn, to not eat the food or to turn the food down. Maybe you were told that you have to eat every single thing on your plate. Maybe you have to eat everything on your plate. And so what that's teaching the child is to ignore, the body, ignore what the stomach is telling them, that, I'm full now, I'm getting content now, I don't need any more. And by telling your child, or you've been told as a child to continue eating everything on your plate, you are overriding that signal that your stomach is sending to your brain. And then eventually what happens is it just switches off, or your brain has learnt to ignore it because you're going to continue eating anyway. And that's then why you just keep overeating. So food can also be used as, a source of shame, as a source of embarrassment, also a source, of controlling behaviour. No, you're not allowed that, restricting foods, or no, you're only allowed that at 2 o'clock, or, a child being given a sweet or being given crisps, and then it being snatched away from them because the child is naughty or bad for taking these things. Well, that can cause, a lot of embarrassment and shame in that child. People have told me that their parents, just used to put the food in their mouth, and I've seen parents do it where they might have, again, just sugary treats or chocolate, and they just put it in that child's mouth. So again, the child is not learning their own body systems. A child, perhaps in that instance, is not asked, are you hungry? Do you want food? So a child then never learns to check in with their stomach to go, yes, I am hungry, or no, I'm not hungry. And maybe a lot of the time, they're not given a choice with food. Are you hungry? Yes, thank you. Or no, I'm not hungry. I don't want any food yet. No, I don't want that food. That choice is taken away in a lot of children. So when that's taken away, again, the child feels that perhaps they're out of control with food or don't have any control in the choice of what they're putting into their own bodies. With all that, controlling behaviour, choice being taken away from them, sort of food then being caused a cause of shame or embarrassment, that child might end up, resenting their situation, resenting their parents, or just, resenting their position. And in some cases, then they might, go unconsciously and F you to the parents, and then perhaps start to overeat, start to revolt against the parents, and start to eat in their own way. So they might start eating secretly, or just start eating a lot of food that again is just providing them comfort, or again it's just providing them control over what they can put in their body. Now my fourth category is adult trauma. A person could have had a brilliant childhood, had really loving sets of parents, carers, so just had a blessed with childhood, but a trauma in adulthood has caused them to turn to food. So this could be a loss of a job, it could be divorce, it could be birth even. In our society, food is in plentiful supply. So in that moment of, again, trauma, just feeling really rubbish about yourself, because food is there, food is so easy to get hold of, in that moment in time, we just might turn to food. So the person might realise that they're doing it the once and be like, it's okay, but it's when it continues again and again that's when it becomes an issue for most of us. So of course, a lot of these patterns in adult are done, unconsciously. As a logical person that most of us are, when we know that we're going through upset, trauma, we turn to perhaps that food in that moment. We are not consciously going, do you know what? I know I'm feeling really, really rubbish about myself. I know that this is a really horrible time in my life, but cake is going to fix it. No, we don't say that, because we know that cake is not going to fix anything. But just in that moment, unconsciously, our brain goes, oh, do you know what? It just feels good. Feels good, and that's what we want. We want, again, that moment of comfort. So we just do it for that moment, and maybe we just know that we're doing it just for this period of time, because that once we then can deal with our emotions, maybe we know that we will get through this point. And then that leads me on to my next steps, which are just steps on how to heal. So to heal yourself, just start to become aware, all right? Start to learn and become observant of your behaviours around food. Start to just learn what your feelings are around food. Be compassionate with yourself. If you started this from early childhood, like some of the patterns that I've spoken about, none of this is your fault. You just turn to it in that moment. Maybe you were such a young child that you didn't do it consciously, even if you turned to it as an adult. Like I say, it wasn't a conscious decision. So just be compassionate with yourself. Just have empathy for yourself and go, do you know what? In that moment, it was really, really helpful. But now I want a new behaviour, and that's okay. Start journaling where you are with food. So start journaling, how much you're eating, but also the emotions that are causing you to eat. This can really then bring it into your awareness. Of course, if there's something a lot deeper going on, if you've got those patterns from childhood, or there's been a trauma from childhood or poor parenting, what really, really help is going to see a therapist. A therapist will really help you uncover all of that trauma. It doesn't mean that you're out exposed, out in the open. No, a therapist really sort of facilitates you being able to see that trauma in a different perspective, to help you and to enable you to be able to deal with it in a safe, and loving environment. So then what that does is that then corrects your behaviours in the current day, and definitely helps you then manage the food. If any of these of what I've spoken about today really resonate with you, you can see yourself in these, what I've just said, in these categories, comment below. You don't have to give your whole story, because I appreciate that is so personal. Just comment below on, yeah, I resonate, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And then, because, I'd love to know, how many of you then recognise yourselves in here. Also, if you like my video, and again, you resonated with it, give it a thumbs up. And also click the bell to be notified of my next video, which will come out next Thursday.